Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios North. That's Brent Lucas Oil Stadium for the 2022 Big Ten Football Media Days, brought to you by our friends at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, right off of I-65. Rick Bozich, the Hall of Famer, joins us now from WDRB.com. Rick, how are you?
I'm good. It's a little rainy down here this morning, but you're up in Indy. I almost came, but we decided just to watch it on TV. I just drove to Charlotte and back last week for ACC Media Day, so I've logged plenty of miles recently.
Yeah, your piece that I see, your most recent piece, very on topic, as Indiana was a team that Tom Allen had came in and brought in all of the excitement and had the fan support. And then, of course, last season's collapse. But Rick has a piece out right now that you can go to WDRB.com about that very thing. But, yeah, it's this is, I guess it's not suffice to say it's more than an important season for him to bounce back, to see where this program is going. Because that 2-10 season was horrific for so many reasons. But one thing that Tom Allen said yesterday about how that Iowa game, how it affected them, and I remember that because I was so shocked at that result and how it was happening, how they were getting beat. I was like, wait a minute, what the hell's going on? And it seems like the entire team was shell-shocked from that, but he said they never really recovered from that.
Yeah, I mean, I think three things are important. One is the way they got, wasn't it like 21-0 at the end of the first quarter? I mean, it was over after one quarter, and it was almost like
3-4 plays. I mean, they were down 14-0.
Yeah, it foreshadowed the whole season. Like, if not just that game was over, the season was over in many ways. And then, although they did win the next two, and we're fortunate to hang on and beat Western Kentucky down there, they were in position to win the Cincinnati game, and they still had a little bit of juice behind them. I know there were some national writers at that game. Pat Forty was in Bloomington for the Cincinnati game, and I think he was going to write about IU maybe if they beat Cincinnati, but McFadden gets thrown out, and Cincinnati wins the game, and Indiana just went from there. And then to me, the most interesting stuff that I read or heard from yesterday, and it must have come in the breakout sessions, and you can explain it, but that I guess the morning after the game or even the night of the Purdue game that Cam Jones and Jack Tuttle, I believe, texted Tom Allen and wanted to meet with him the following day and tell him that they wanted to have a player accountability committee so something like this didn't happen again. And, I know after that game, Micah McFadden made some comments, but I sure get the impression as time goes on that the defense and the new defensive coordinator wasn't a good fit. It didn't click, and the defense didn't play as well last year. What do you think?
Well, I mean, Tom's going back to calling the defense.
Right.
That's a telltale sign right there when you had a head coach, an inexperienced head coach who probably should have not stopped calling the defense, but he needed to get that head coaching experience. I don't know that it was good for the team that he stopped, but there's coaches that come in and don't stop being the offensive coordinator or calling plays. So I think he kind of should have stuck with that because that's his forte. That's why he got that job, as he said. What he did was built on it. Go ahead, Dustin.
I was just going to say, is it fair to say that you could give them an incomplete the defense from last season? I agree it wasn't nearly as good as it was in 2020, but to me it's hard to judge. That offense was so bad. I mean, they were on the field constantly, and when you're constantly in bad field position, bad situations, your offense isn't scoring points, they can't even stay on the damn field. Like, to me, I still don't know how good or how bad that defense was. I don't disagree that maybe Charlton Warren wasn't the guy to be running that defense. I just legitimately don't know whether they were good, bad, or just a victim of circumstance.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, when you go back and look at some of the numbers, and I did yesterday, they had 4 touchdown passes all season in Big Ten games. That's unacceptable. That's fireable. That's whatever you want to say. I mean, a really good team's going to have 4 every game. and most teams are going to have 4 every 2 games. They have 4 in 9 games. No wonder you're not going to win any games because every team in the conference knows you can't throw the ball. They know you can't throw it deep, and they're just going to flood the box and tee off on you, and they did. And IU's quarterbacks got pummeled. And the second thing was, and I don't know whether this is a change in defensive philosophy going from Kane Womack to Charlton Warren, but I can't remember a team that had such a dramatic change in being so far plus in turnovers in 2020. The last year they were in turnover margin, they were the second worst team in the country in turnover margin. They were making them and not getting them. When you have a terrible offense and you're giving the ball away and not getting it back, you're going to get smoked, and that's why they got smoked.
Yeah, and the turnover, that's been the problem. How many different defensive coordinators has Tom Allen had? And defenses.
Third one?
It's at least, and yeah, I'm trying to think, make sure there wasn't another one. But
who was before Womack? I don't remember that. Somebody was before Womack.
Golly.
This is only his 6th year, so it's
Tom called the defense on his own before Womack, but he also had Mark Hagan as co-defensive coordinator.
There you go.
Okay. So, yeah, but going back to that, the inconsistency on the defense, I think that hurt them, but offense is just inept and was inept, and the offensive line was inept. There's nothing else you can say. That's about as kind as I can put it. But I think the defense will be pretty stiff this year. They've got a lot of guys back. They got a lot of guys that are experienced, and now you do have Tom Allen, who has taken this personal. He knows how bad that season was, and he knows that this season his career at Indiana is starting to be viewed, and so what they do is extraordinarily important. I guess he has a lot of faith in Walt Bell on the offensive side, because that tells me that as well. If he's kind of, if you're going to be doing that, you can't be spending much time focusing on the other as he has before.
Well, this is such a dramatic difference from last year. Last year during the summer, I kind of felt like they were really out pushing the program and they were more open, and it's been total lockdown this year. As we talked about before, no access to practice, no video, no really seeing what's going on. Haven't been really a lot of player interviews during the summer. This is the first time since the end of spring practice we've gotten any players at all. I mean, Allen talked at Hubers, but I don't really think in the last couple of years there was Zoom stuff during the summer where they had players available and they talked to. And there's just a lot of mystery about this team, and I think it's intentional of mystery of who's going to be the starting guys, especially on offense, and B, what are they going to run? And that's the way they want it. Because I think he knows, again, we've talked about this for several months. I mean, that Illinois game is huge. It's huge because you need to win that game to get people to stop talking about last year. If you get blown out again, it's going to be, here they go again. And secondly, it's one of the 3 teams they play from the West, and Illinois is not one of the better teams, and you get them at home. If you have any hope to have a 6-win season, I think you have to beat Illinois.
Well, yeah, absolutely, because that could potentially propel them, because Cincinnati's not as good. If they could get on a roll, they could potentially start 4-0, which now gives you 8 games to win 2. So, which is the situation they will be in with the schedule that they have. But if Indiana's to go to a bowl game, I think that they have to start 4-0.
Yeah, I mean, in Illinois, let's be honest, this is year 2 for Bielema. You're talking about a guy who's still rebuilding his program, and I know that's different these days with the portal and stuff, but if you're in year 6 and you're playing a team in year 2 and it's your home opener and you're really, a mid-range Big Ten program, you should win this game. You need to win this game.
But, Dustin, they have the game before with Wyoming, Illinois, the week before, and Indiana is almost like a new offensive coordinator, all this stuff. It's new. So they're going to be at a disadvantage.
A little bit, but I mean, if you're good enough, that shouldn't be too much to overcome. It's a heck of a lot easier than playing Iowa on the road the first game.
Right.
If they were playing Iowa on the road the first game this year, we'd already be saying they're going to get beat by 3 or 4 touchdowns, right? Yeah. I mean, nobody would even consider them having a chance to win this year. So They got an easier team to play, and it's at home. They need to take advantage of it. And as you mentioned, for Tom Allen to get the juice back, I mean, let's think. A year ago, man, he was the most popular Indiana football coach since Bill Mallory, and now it's like doubt has creeped in, and like, is he really the guy to get it done? And I think it's showing up. Last year they had their best recruiting class ever, and that was on the heels of them having that really good season. The 2023 recruiting class doesn't appear to be nearly as good, and that's because they lost last year. So to get some of that recruiting mojo back, you can't. This would be a 10-game Big Ten losing streak. You can't have that.
Something else that Tom Allen, Dustin mentioned yesterday. This is the fourth time in his 6 years that he's been here that they have started with a Big Ten opponent. No one comes close to that, and that's ridiculous. Last year when they played Iowa, that was only the second time Iowa had done that since 1979, and the previous opponent was Indiana. So
right.
Indiana's not getting any love from the Big Ten and scheduling.
It's a changing world, though. I mean, Purdue opens the night before Indiana at home against Penn State, so they're
That's not going to be any fun. That's not going to be no fun.
And Indiana, I know in the past at least one time it was Ohio State, one time it was Iowa. This is Illinois. Who was the fourth one? I don't remember.
It was Penn State in 2020, but I mean there was no.
Oh, that's right.
But they were supposed to open with Wisconsin anyway.
That's right.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, good point.
So there you go.
I mean, let's be honest. The Big Ten looks at Indiana as, on the fringe of Big Ten relevance in football, and they're going to get the scraps that they get. I mean, they just are.